Good afternoon, everyone. John and Gay here, doing a program. I'm going to start with a song about sticking with the faith, keeping the faith. Faith of our fathers living still, in spite of dungeon, fire and sword. Oh, how our hearts beat high with joy whene'er we hear that glorious word. Faith of our fathers, holy faith, we will be true to thee till death. Faith of our fathers, we will strive to win all nations unto thee, and through the truth that comes from God, mankind shall then be truly free. Faith of our fathers, holy faith, we will be true to thee till death. Faith of our fathers, we will love both friend and foe in all our strife, and preach thee too as love knows how, by kindly words and virtuous life. Faith of our fathers, holy faith, we will be true to thee till death.
Thank you. And that is what we're going to talk about. We got two things in the mail today, some Macenti reports, and that we're talking about the attacks on the Christian faith and the Jewish faith, and probably on any faith. The attacks that we're using COVID as an excuse, using just COVID as an excuse, and yet no restrictions on fancy restaurants, no restrictions on liquor board stores, you name it. So it's clearly open season to attack people's faith. And it's very illogical and very arbitrary. There are some places in the States where the church, where worship is considered an essential service and is protected, yet even they have restrictions and so on. So we must restore our right to worship. And it is within man, it is absolutely necessary that man must worship. He was made to worship. He has something missing inside him if he cannot worship. And if he doesn't know the true God, he will worship anything or everything. It has been said, if you have nothing to die for, then you have nothing really to live for. So this COVID nonsense, the scam of a pandemic that goes on and on and on, and causes deaths due to hindrances, restrictions, isolation, is causing death. And if we are taking, and at the same time there is attacks that makes it life bearable. We live near a church that often has a sign that says, "Because he lives, I can face tomorrow." And that's a very popular song. And that is essentially it. We are made for something bigger than ourselves. We are made to worship. We have a hole in our heart, as St. Augustine would say, a vacancy that can only be filled by God. That is how we are made, and we have an opportunity to explain that, to defend that, and to use it to evangelize. That is why it's important. And you might ask, why are these people so interested in attacking Christianity? Why are they nobody getting the brunt of criticism and persecutions and absurd restrictions is the church? And it doesn't matter if it's in Canada or United States. Now there are some places there is little or no restrictions, but there in the United States, especially in places like Chicago, it was a place to worship. Some of the most beautiful churches in the world are in places like Chicago, and they were built by the local people who had come from, just like Saskatchewan, had come from places where they were persecuted, where their faith was persecuted, and they were not wealthy. Many of them came with the shirt or their sheepskin coat on their back. And what did they do? They built churches, beautiful churches, because they knew that was something inside them. They had to have their faith. And that precisely is what is under attack. Now, we are glad that we can have maybe 150 people in a church instead of 30 or 10. But is this really necessary? Now, like everyone else, I'm thankful that the Premier has loosened up sufficiently. But we have to ask ourselves, while we are thankful for that, was it necessary? And what is inside man is that the first place it needs is a place to worship. Another thing that we're looking, which seems dissimilar but is in the same subject, is the Reindeer Lake History Group. And you will find it under that name in the internet.
On Facebook.
On Facebook. And you will find groups of 6 people, 10 people, 12 people gathering around a log cabin. And you wonder why was this so important? Why did they suffer so much? And you see the little girls in their starched iron dresses and pressed dresses, and how much work that would have done to dress those girls in their Sunday best. And it is just another way that these people who didn't have electricity, didn't have a large house, probably a log cabin, maybe one family I know had 14 children that is represented, and it's very common. But they had faith, and at that time, they were not the least bit racist. They loved their priest, and they loved that they could go to have a church. And you see a church with a log cabins, a log steeple, and so on. So I heartily recommend this Reindeer Lake Reindeer History Group photos. And just think how important the missionary was. And we have had some of the greatest missionaries, not well known, but some of them were, like Bishop Charlebois, who was, you might call him the apostle, meaning the first person who truly brought and established Christianity in the north. And there were other oblates as well. You will find that a book we have used as a textbook is Père de Couëtton, and it tells the story of Bishop Charlebois. It's and it who went 3,000 miles with snowshoes or uh, sometimes bare feet to go through a swamp and not have his shoes ruined. And it is a great story. We have some of the greatest missionary stories in the world. He even had things to contend with that St. Paul didn't, although I wouldn't want to take away anything from St. Paul, but he never had mosquitoes swarmed around him as far as we know. So we have a great legacy in Canada, and some of the greatest missionaries in Canada are in Canada, such as Marie de l'Incarnation, a person who established a girls' school in 1600s, and the other Ursulines who helped her, who in the middle of the winter their convent was burned down. They were in their t-shirts, or what we would call the first layers, standing in the snow, thanking God that their lives were spared. The church in Canada, starting in the 1600s, is a great and wonderful story. And that is the faith that we must preserve. We must, first of all, keep our history and keep our faith and ask the question, why was that important? Why did Bishop Charlebois be willing to go 3,000 miles by canoe or snowshoes or bare feet to spread the gospel? What is this gospel that we must spread? And it is, we must do two things. We must keep the faith and spread the faith. It is important as it was to St. Paul. It is important as it was to Bishop Charlebois, and it's important today. It is the only thing that is going to keep us from going crazy in a world that is well on its way to being crazy. We have terrible things that people never thought would happen, such as attack on the mentally ill. Louis Riel was charged with treason, and in his defense, the priest said, no, he's mentally ill, and they wanted to save his hide. But Louis Riel said, I would rather be hung than to go back in a mental hospital. And the prosecution said, Louis Riel is not mentally ill. He knows right from wrong. And the definition of mental illness was that you didn't know right from wrong. Now, if that's the case, the Liberal Party pushing the killing of mentally destitute people, mentally impaired people, saying they can be killed, along with the messages to the diabetic, to the handicapped, and so on. Who doesn't know right from wrong? According to the standards of the era of Louis Riel in 1885, Louis Riel was perfectly sane because he knew what's right and wrong. We've lost our moral compass. We've lost our ability to know right from wrong. And Jesus Christ will bring us back. We will find our moral compass in the Bible and in the church. maybe will be the end of this program, but it is far from over. We need to bring back religious freedom, and we need to bring back religious persuasion, religious evangelism. We need to tell people about Jesus Christ. It is our mandate. And we have roads. Bishop Charlebois never complained about roads. When you go up north, constantly, with good reasons, people complain about the roads. I didn't know that there were roads like that at all anywhere that would be called a road until I went back up north and discovered the Northern Road. When I was in the north before, we had no roads. I think our time is up.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back.
Yes. Thank you for listening, and we will be back. God bless you all.